There truly is nothing like a bit of rain to create havoc on the racetrack. The Dutch Grand Prix was one of the best races we've seen this year, with some teams profiting from great strategic calls, and others, well, let's just say they weren't so happy, with one of those teams being Mercedes, where neither driver nor Toto is being impressed. Let's just say right now, we are not sure who is at fault, as Mercedes is doing their best to have a Ferrari moment, which is entirely unlike them. Interestingly, they weren't the only ones with an interesting call on Sunday afternoon, with Red Bull also choosing a rather suspect call for Sergio Perez, leaving most of us thinking that it is a clear sign of favoritism. Want to know what George and Hamilton had to say about Mercedes' strategy and Toto Wolff's rather furious reaction? Also, did Red Bull really favor Max Verstappen? Stick around to find out. At the moment, there are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and Red Bull winning an F1 race, and not only that, but Max Verstappen winning the race. The Dutchman showed that even in the most tricky conditions, he is the man to beat, and at this rate, he could really win all of the remaining races. Max Verstappen took a record-equaling 9th consecutive race victory at a frantic Dutch Grand Prix on Sunday, with the weather throwing up a thrilling race at Zandvoort. Fernando Alonso also took a superb second place for Aston Martin, and Pierre Gasly was promoted to third after a time penalty for Sergio Perez dropped him to 4th after crossing the line. The race was halted for a red flag following a heavy crash for Zhou Guanyu in a late downpour, before it was resumed for a final 7 laps in wet conditions, with a time penalty for Perez bumping him off of the podium after speeding in the pit lane. Verstappen had claimed pole in a wet-dry qualifying session on Saturday, but quickly lost his lead as heavy rain during the first lap led to a major reshuffle in the order, as the track became more suited to the intermediate tires rather than the slicks that the entire field had started on. Perez, who is one of several drivers to pit at the end of the last lap, claimed the lead as he scythed his way through the field, but Verstappen, who came out in 13th after stopping a lap later, would quickly work his way back up to 2nd. Now this is where it got interesting, as Perez was clearly in the lead at this stage, but Red Bull, instead of guarding its number 1 driver in the race, opted for a rather suspect call, in particular if you were a Perez fan. With the rain having relented and the surface once more favoring slick tires, Verstappen was able to reclaim the lead as he pitted on lap 11 to benefit from an undercut on Perez, who emerged in 2nd after he stopped a lap later. Now what we find interesting is, surely as Perez was the lead driver, he would get the more favorable strategy. Well, in this case, it didn't seem like that happened, with the Mexican driver clearly puzzled on the radio to his team, but it does seem that Red Bull had a reason for getting Max to undercut Perez. A couple of reasons. One, we also had Alonso taking the slicks as well as Gasly behind. The pace of the undercut was strong. If we had pitted the other way round, we had the risk of coming out 1st and 4th. The risk was for Checo because Verstappen was catching 7 seconds in 3 laps. His outlap was so extreme it took us slightly by surprise that Max jumped Checo, Horner said. I mean, let's be brutally honest with ourselves. Was Checo ever going to challenge Max in this race? Probably not, because the Dutchman was in such fine form that he won it by a sizable lead once again. The real concern will be that the Mexican driver really should be getting the support from Red Bull, but at the moment, it looks like there's 2 camps, one that enjoys Checo to stay, and the other which is not so sure, with Helmut Marko firmly in the group that is not sure of Checo, with the Austrian having some choice words for the Mexican driver. He was lucky with his pit stop that gave him the lead, and then, when he came into the pits, he crashed quite heavily into the wall and also got a 5-second penalty, Marko summed up. On the extreme wet tires, he was late on the brakes, and there he was lucky because the car was damaged, and without the red flag, he would not have finished the race, said Helmut Marko on Perez's race. Alright Marko, steady on. The man is not having a great time, but P4 is not terrible and would have been better had he not got the 5-second penalty, which even Horner said was harsh, as he could have been skidding with all the water in the pit lane. Checo's clearly not Marko's favorite, but we all know that. So what did the Mexican have to say about his race? It was just chaos, just changing a lot, and unfortunately our great call in the beginning turned out to not be so great in the end. It's a shame that we end up losing the podium because I feel like we really deserved it today, Perez said. And what about the undercutting incident? After the race, he told the media, I think in those scenarios the team just have more information than we do at the time, so it's something we obviously will review during the meeting, and I'm sure that there's a reason behind it. Had the shoe been on the other foot, best believe we would have heard from Max and GP would have had a very hot ears. which he would have calmly noted, "Okay, Max, proceed and race on." The real issue here is it looks like Perez is not even trying to fight anymore, as he would have in the beginning of the season, but I guess when Max is your teammate, this is what happens. You could say that Red Bull got their strategy right while Mercedes got it all wrong. Mercedes had some unusual strategy decisions during the Dutch Grand Prix, with rain starting to spit down on the track on the very first lap of the race at Zandvoort. Several drivers pitted immediately to swap to the intermediate tyres, with many more following suit at the end of the second lap. But having started on the medium tyre, Lewis was left out until the end of lap 3, having fallen to the lower reaches of the pack, with George Russell left out another lap still before Mercedes brought him in. Russell couldn't hide his frustration with Mercedes' late call, saying over team radio, "I was forecast for a podium. Fuck, how did we mess this up?" Having attempted to brazen their way through the rain by staying out on dry tyres, only to concede defeat when the drivers were losing buckets of time on every lap, team boss Toto admitted that the decisions made on the pit wall had been completely wrong. "We stayed out catastrophically too long. We got it completely wrong, and that's annoying because the car had really good pace. From then on, it was just about recovering as well as we could. I would rather have good pace than a fast car than a mediocre result even if it hurts." We saw at the end on the intermediates that George had Max's pace and Lewis was very strong behind Sainz. "We could have been much further ahead," Wolff said. Clearly it's not all bad as the pace is there, but Toto went on to say how he feels that the team needs to improve all over, as it seems like the once high standards of Mercedes are slipping with a few errors creeping in and their pit stops going to pot. It's still bittersweet because the result is really bad. It could have been, but it doesn't count in our sport. We'll review it thoroughly. It's never one person or one department. That was subpar from all of us, and that includes me. It's good when it hurts. When it stings, it sticks. With both Hamilton and Russell falling to near the back, the indecision left Hamilton running in 16th, but it was even worse for Russell, who only pitted after 4 laps and dropped behind his teammate to 18th. It was a race of recovery from that point on. Both drivers came back strongly, with Russell's gamble on the hard tyre paying dividends until the late race contact resulted in a puncture and a retirement, while Hamilton finished 6th and clambering all over the back of Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. Russell was clearly not happy. It's a bit of a shame of an afternoon. We had such a fast car today, but the decisions and the weather went against us, so we need to look into what we could have done better because clearly we missed a big opportunity today. We were expecting the rain to stay for 1 or 2 minutes and it stayed for 10. I thought I could brave it out for a lap or 2 more if it was only 1 or 2 minutes, but it wasn't. Hamilton didn't exactly mince his words either, as the 7-time world champion felt as if the team really needed to improve their strategy, feeling as the race could have been very different if they got their calls right. When the rain came out, we as a team made the wrong decision. Ultimately, it was a team's call and we paid the price for that. But then we came out last, and I think after that it was just chasing. I kept my head down. Now, it was not all bad news for Mercedes, as clearly the car has some pace and they thought they could do much better than where they ended up. But we are all getting a bit sick of hearing about Mercedes' comebacks. Until we see them win a race, we can't really take them seriously. But Hamilton clearly feels as if the team is on the right track with the car. Had it not been for the start on the mediums and his terrible qualifying, he feels that he was on the pace of Verstappen. On his fight back through the field, Hamilton added, "I was really happy. I got past the McLaren of Lando Norris on this track, which is not easy to do, and I was quicker than Sainz at the end, just needed to get DRS. I think the pace in those conditions, if we'd made the right call, we could have had the pace to be challenging the top 2. We would have been challenging Max, to be honest. Particularly when we got to the dry, I mean, pace-wise, I think we weren't terribly far off. Not saying that we would have beat them, but it's nice to think that way." The thought of someone beating Max this year. It sure is a nice thought, Lewis. It sure is.